Good morning, all. Welcome to today's training, a bit of a refresher on UWL Flex. Just to inform you, I am recording the meeting. You may have received the notification from Microsoft Teams.
It's 12 hours.
The reason for this is just in case any of your colleagues are unable to attend this meeting live, as we're doing at the moment, then I'll be able to share them the recordings so they can review what it is that we've discussed. So we are expecting a few more people today. Let me see here. Okay. We are expecting about 10, maybe, also. Maybe we'll give them just a minute or two and see whether they will join us during that time. In the meantime, while we wait, I'm just gonna go ahead and share an activity. And this will be on Poll Everywhere. If you could all visit the link there in a moment. Once we get started, I will activate the activities and we'll be able to collect your feedback. So I can see we have a few more people joining in. That's good. All right, we'll allow another minute or so before we get started. Okay, we have around 16 people in the meeting. That's good. All right, then. I'll just get started. In case any others join us while in the meeting, we'll welcome them as they come in. Like I said, the meeting today is being recorded, and the recording will be provided to your colleagues, any of those who are unable to attend this training with us today. And get started. So today is just a refresher on UWL Flex. We'll be looking at what that is, the components that it has, the 3 components. We'll see how we can create the content to follow the UWL Flex model, following those 3 components. And this will be on a week-by-week basis. We'll also look at a quick overview of the Blackboard baseline template, just to discuss each and every single element included within the template and how they can be used for when you're developing your materials for your students. And then, of course, there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. And in case there are any questions I may not be able to answer, I'll take those back with me and I'll confirm with you via email sometime next week. All right, so the link I shared, you should now be able to visit it and you will see the following poll active. All you have to do is simply select one of these options that's relevant to you to show that whether you are a permanent member of staff, an HPL, or a PhD student. The reason why this is important is so that we would know who has been joining these trainings and identify whether there's any additional support or guidance to provide. And I forgot to do that. Hello? All right, coming back to this. So 4 of you have already responded so far. The rest, please do the same. The link is in the chat, or you can access it looking at the top of the page. It shows paulev.com/technologist. It has to be written as is. While you're there, simply join in by typing your first name and select one of these boxes that's relevant to you. And once it shows that your response has been recorded, that's all you need to do. We will allow an additional minute before we move on to the next activity and then finish up with the slides. So it appears most of you in here today are permanent members of staff with 1 HPL and no PhD students. All right. Okay. Last few seconds. All right, then we'll move on to the next one. On that same link, you should now see this other activity asking you to select the school with which you're a part of. Simply do the same thing as before, just select one of the boxes that's relevant to you. I believe today's session, it's mostly for the School of Human and Social Sciences. If most of you are of that school, then you should see it in the second column at the bottom, right here, Human and Social Sciences. You would just select that and that response would have been recorded. In case you're having difficulty accessing the poll or you are not seeing what I'm showing on the screen at the moment, let me know so I can look into
it. It's not refreshing, Mauricio.
It's not, okay, that's fine. Let me just go in here quickly and see if it's activated. Oh, that's okay. Let me just activate it here, just a second. All right, deactivate this one. And there we go. All right, now you should be able to see it. I'm going to lock the first one as well, so it doesn't confuse those who will be joining us later. So if you now visit the link, you should see that the new one is active. Excellent. It shows most of you are from the School of Human Social Sciences as expected. That's good. All right. We just allow the timer at the top left to run out. Sorry. When it's training. But yeah, no worries. Be here in an hour. No worries. Sorry, apologies for that. So 30 more seconds and then we'll get going. There we go. Excellent. All right. So like I said, in this session, we'll be discussing what UWL Flex is and why we use it. We'll look at some examples of creating content following the UWL Flex model. We'll discuss a bit of a brief overview on what the Blackboard's baseline module template is and how each one of the elements relates to each other and how they can be used. We will have a Q&A at the end of the session. In case there are any questions during the Q&A that I may not be able to answer, I will note those down And I'll come back to you with complete responses, hopefully by sometime early next week, if not by end of this week, which is tomorrow, hopefully. So just the slides developed by Anthony, adapted by myself for use. So what is UWL Flex? So this is a 3-component model for structuring content within Blackboard that is used to facilitate blended teaching and learning with a seamless switch between fully online and blended approaches of teaching. The 3 components are investigate, apply, and consolidate. So what those are in a bit more detail. The investigate stage is where you have your asynchronous learning. This is mainly where you provide a bit of an introduction to whatever content that you'll be delivering for that particular week on that subject matter. It may be in any way. It could be, as the examples shown on the screen, maybe something like a short lecture, maybe a short complete task for the students to do, and things like that. So just a bit like a generic thing. It's a mini lecture, maybe a combination of that, and some Q&A activities for the students just to help increase the engagement. The second, apply, is the synchronous learning, similar to what we're doing at the moment. With this is where you're engaging the students, whether it's with a webinar, and this is based on what we were doing for the last year, because we're doing this online as we're doing it at the moment, so that you'd have your webinar, whether it's Collaborate or Teams or Zoom or something else. And the fact that we're coming back to face-to-face teaching, then that's also included while you're delivering your session with your students while you're in your class. It also has a combination of other things like a group work activity, a peer work and feedback. In most cases, you can also use a use case of studies, problem-based tasks, so that they can, learn from seeing an actual problem and how that can be resolved. And of course, you link that to their professional practice. Now, as it says in the bracket there, it can also be available asynchronously, and that may be that you've shared a self-narrated PowerPoint that discusses the content for the day, so it doesn't have to be a live lecture like what is happening at the moment. And like we said, we link this to the professional work or practice for the student. Then the third, consolidate. This has the asynchronous learning, or a combination of the following. It has 3 main parts, which we'll be discussing a bit later, but the main one is the practice. With this, you'll be providing them small activities to do, maybe a small test for them to talk about and or give their feedback or understanding based on what it is that you've covered during apply or what they have investigated during the investigate stage. You may have a discussion forum for them to discuss between themselves for peer-to-peer support, or something generic where you can also intervene and provide additional clarity if required. You also offer an extend option where you may give them additional or further study for them to extend their knowledge on that particular subject area. In most cases, that may be in some form of a LinkedIn course or a book chapter or a specific book or a journal or an article, anything of the sort. The main key feature for the consolidate is looking at feedback, because you're feedbacking on what it is that the student have told you they have understood based on the content that they've learned or what it is that you've delivered. So a bit more further detail. With investigate, it has the 3 parts. Those are the prepare, test, and discuss. Within the prepare, that's where you provide them the preliminary reading or some videos to look at or some narrated PowerPoints that they can start looking at these to try and see if they can understand the content. The test, you may provide them a short quiz, maybe ask them to do a reflect on what it is that they've learned to see how they can explain this in their own words, and that will help you understand whether have they understood the content or not. And of course, the discuss, you may have a discussion forum attached to that activity, so they can either support each other with peer-to-peer, or you can intervene and provide them additional support if required. With apply, it has three main parts as well. That's your start, your middle, and the end. With the start, you basically talk about the plenary or the test results, and these are test results coming hopefully from the initial test you may have given them from Investigate, just to see again what it is they told you there. Discuss that with them during the webinar, so you can you can explain or clarify any matters that they may have misunderstood, or just provide additional information if required. The middle, you may be talking about, discussing a bit of series of problems, providing them to do a bit of group work. That's where you're also delivering your actual session and everything in between. For the end, you're reviewing what it is that you've learned, maybe a bit of a summary of everything that has been covered. You may also ask them to write down what it is that they've understood following what you have delivered, and also added to what they have investigated from the first stage. Lastly, consolidate. It has 5 main parts: practice, debate, research, reflect, and extend. The practice, you may give them an MCQ, a small multiple choice question, just to see again where they stand based on what it is they've understood about the content you've delivered or what they've learned on their own. You may ask them to maybe to write something like a small essay to talk about the understanding if you don't want them to do a test. The debate may be, again, a discussion forum for them to talk about the understanding of the topic, the solutions they came up with, the ways that they came up with their final answers, if it's something more practical, and things like that. Also discuss their general opinions about what it is to understand of the content. For the research, you may provide them a bit of a task to do, whether it's individually or in a group. This may be in a form of questions to find more information for, maybe a group work to talk about or discuss a specific topic related to the content delivered for the week. Or you may ask them to do general research online or read a book chapter and write something, anything that may require them to learn and read more of what it is you've asked them, and then reflect on that and give you their understanding. And like we said, that can be both individual or in a group setting. Then with Reflect, you have the discussion board once again, where they talk about their experience of having found or researched that content, maybe talk with each other so they can just share peer-to-peer feedback as to the different approaches that they used and how they may have understood the questions from different perspectives so they can help themselves. But also, again, you may be able to intervene in case you need to clarify something or provide additional support if needed. And then, of course, with Extend, like we said, we may provide them additional information or content for them to expand their understanding on that particular subject matter. In most cases, that may be a linked learning course. You may link that into the course that they're learning for the week and have them complete the course, maybe come back and do a discussion on it, or write a short paragraph or maybe a quick page to reflect on what it is they've learned and things like that. And all that ties back into the feedback you would give them based on what it is that they've explained, following what they've showed they've understood about the content. And of course, this adds to that activity that you're doing week by week for each one of the weeks of learning across the semester. So other than the content structure, what else does the UWL Flex mode offer? Well, it's a teaching and learning approach that aims to do the following. The first of which is that it helps keep the students engaged and challenged every week. The engagement is mainly when you have them do their research or activities on their own, and so you can see how well they're able to find information to understand a specific subject. The challenge is when you ask them to provide feedback, whether it's an MCQ, maybe ask them to do a research on a topic, or give maybe write a small passage about what it is they've understood. It helps, saves you as a lecturer time, so you don't have to spend more time lecturing, but just guiding them so they can help themselves, while you're also building them up to increase their knowledge and research, maybe trying to understand or divulge the content on their own to see how well they can come up with different ways of explaining that information so they're able to understand it more compared to another passive form of learning. It focuses on giving feedback. Like we said, whenever you have any one of those activities, particularly with Consolidate, you would be building into the activities week by week to add the discussion forums, whether they use these to give each other peer-to-peer feedback or different perspectives on how they understood the content, came about to do their research, and maybe the responses they came forth with. It's also for you to talk to them to see what it is they've told you or showed you that they understood, and you can clarify the points. That also ties back to the questions that you may have asked them following the MCQs you hopefully provided, if not the discussion boards, or maybe it's the short passages or essay type questions that they may have completed following the content they've covered for the week. It helps you identify those who may be struggling with a part of the content or most of it. So you can see any of the students who need a bit more support on a specific part of what you're delivering. And that can help you understand who those students are, what that part is, and see whether you can give them additional support as some form of maybe an additional hour of teaching, maybe some, I don't know, what's this called? Maybe personal tutoring activity, maybe see them after the class, maybe provide them additional courses that they may learn to expand their learning, things like that. All of which will help them resolve any of the matters they have if they have not been able to understand the content well. Following this additional support you provide, then that would help them resolve that so they can understand it better. Then it helps the students self-assess themselves to track their progress continually. Following what they're doing every week, they can see full well what it is that they've understood most, or if they are, lagging in any one of the weeks, then they can focus more on that so they can help themselves understand that content better, or they can ask you, of course, for additional support when required. It prepares the students to methodically respond or provide and prepare for their summative assessments and any other forms of assessments you may be creating as part of the module. So say it's maybe a test coming up or an exam or some form of a report, an essay. All of this that they're doing week by week, they would be able to learn how to prepare, plan their time, prepare a bit of research questions, based on the questions you've given them, how they can find relevant keywords to find the relevant content, understand that content, and then write back, their responses of what it is they've understood and more of that. And then finally, of course, we do hope that with this form of approach, it may make the learning experience online much more enjoyable. So following this model, how exactly do we create this content within Blackboard? So for your first week, for the investigate activity, you may have something as the video. That video could be something introducing the topic. It may be something that discusses a specific part of the topic, just so the student could look at that again to see what it is they understand about it, and then part of the feedback they give you, following the discussion forums they use, or the small passages they may write as part of an essay to talk about the understanding of that content. That adds up to the feedback you provide. It's also maybe that you may ask them to do a bit of a test. So that test is just an example of one of the activities you may ask them to do following them completing watching the video. So it could be that test, it could be that small passage, it could be a discussion, it could be anything. Like we said, the discussion to talk about the specific topic that they've covered. And then there may be the webinar that has been scheduled for the week. For the apply, you may have your face-to-face teaching while you're in class on campus, or a webinar as we're doing at the moment. And during this time, that's when you're delivering the content following what it is that you've prepared. In most cases, that may be in forms of slides from PowerPoint. In other cases, it may not be that. It could be a self-narrated recording of some kind, or maybe some kind of a discussion during a seminar looking at a journal or something, or an article or a book chapter or anything of the sort. And then, of course, you do provide them the additional resources to increase their activities during the class. An example of which is Poll Everywhere. But of course, you could use other platforms, though Poll Everywhere, I would personally recommend that most because it is already part of your subscriptions as stuff. And it's also the ones that I've used for the beginning of this session to collect feedback from you. And in case any of you do not have a Poll Everywhere account at the end of this session, please do let me know and I will create one for you. And of course, additional support and training will be provided later, so you can use that and prepare to build that into your weeks of learning for this next academic year and onwards. Then within Consolidate, you have the first activity where you give them the practice activity. You may ask them to run a simulation or answer some questions based on a subject topic. So they do a bit of research to find that information, and that's mainly for activity 2. So ask them for the questions to find out information about that particular question related to the content that you've delivered for the week. Or you may ask them to write a passage or a bit of an essay type question to explain the understanding of the topic, and anything of the sort. And then, of course, like we said, you can extend that to provide them additional information, such as a LinkedIn learning course that they could use to learn additionally following what it is they've covered for the week. If not a LinkedIn learning course, like we said, it can be anything different, such as a book chapter that's related to the content covered. It may be additional recordings, it may be a self-narrated PowerPoint, it may be anything, as long as it just helps to expand the content or their knowledge of what it is they've covered for that week. Okay. In case of any support required, you can contact us at Expert Academy following those contact details at the top. And the additional support is also available online following the links attached there. You don't need to note this down. After the end of this session, I will be providing a copy of the slides for your reference, so you will have all of this information at hand. Now, before I continue showing you the specific links here, particularly the guidance for UWL Flex, the exemplar, and talking about the module structure following the Blackboard baseline, are there any questions following what we've discussed so far?
Hi, Marisha.
I take
it. Sorry, I realized you may not have seen my hand.
Yes, sir.
So this is Trisha. I'm sort of asking in anticipation of where you're going to go with the next set of slides. Because one of the things is likely is that, because we've had content developed in the previous academic year, I think it's kind of signposting staff to ways in which they can, bring that content potentially into their current instances. So, I mean, following the showing of the exemplar, how content can be copied over and just maybe, improving things on signposting and that sort of thing, which you can maybe point out in the exemplar. So I think that that's a suggestion. I don't know if anyone else has any other requests, but I think that one might be most useful possibly for staff at this point in time.
Absolutely, I would totally agree, because this is the third session we're running, and following the first and the second 2 days ago and yesterday, every single time it's a question that has been coming up always, asking how staff can copy content from, say, a previous module to a current one, and of course making the necessary changes with that content if required. So I will be showing that as well. And I will provide the relevant guidance direct to it. And in case additional support is required, like I said, just contact Expert Academy or myself.
Thanks, Mauricio. I think Agatha's put her hand up as well.
Yes. Agatha.
Yeah, hi. So my question might be slightly controversial, so apologies for that. But my course, I'm representing the forensic science course, which is, as some of you might know, maybe not heavily, but let's call it heavily based on practice in the lab. So last year, obviously, we tried to use the consolidate part. So the examples that they would do in the lab, but this year, the idea is that the students will be actually conducting those practicals themselves in the lab. And obviously, because of that, the whole structure of, well, maybe not the whole structure, but at least in my case, where it's chemistry, toxicology, so it's very practice-based, I would like to change the structure because I will actually see those students in the lecture, hopefully, if they show up, in the lecture room, then in the lab. So is there a wiggle, like how much do we have to actually follow that model? So because again, as I did last year, the consolidate will be the practical primarily, but they will do that in the lab. So any thoughts?
All right. Yes.
I was going to just offer a suggestion, Risho, that Agatha, maybe what you could do is just put a signposting in the consolidate section just to say C lab activities or something like that. So that you don't have to completely deconstruct the template within Blackboard, but you could just signpost them to, I don't know, you might have a particular lab number that is linked to the consolidate for that week. Maybe just a simple comment to the lab book or the whatever.
Okay.
Right?
I see. Okay, I'll do that. And so now the second part of my question. So the lab instructions, would that be more useful in the consolidate or in the actual investigate part? Because the practicals are linked to some degree with the lecture. So would the instructions be in the because I had that issue last year as well? Would that be part of the the investigate, because they will have to read the lab instructions?
Yeah, I mean, if that's how it works, I think if it works like that within the course and that's how you feel it makes sense to the students as well, then that seems to be the sensible way to go with it.
Okay, thank you.
Risha, I hope you don't mind. It's just that I was
absolutely. Actually, it makes life much easier for me because you're helping me answer the questions, which is absolutely great. I was just going to add and say that in case there's anything else that I could possibly add with that, I'll take all of those questions back with me, and then I'll discuss those with my colleagues in the team who are more into the academic development side. And I should be able to come back to all of you with the responses following what you've asked. Any additional questions before we go and look at the guides and other sections?
I don't think there are any other hands up.
All right, perfect. Okay, so we'll be looking at these guide sites that obviously would provide you all the necessary guidance and information you need. Starting with the UWL Flex. So that's under the campus press.uwl.ac.uk/UWL Flex. Like I said, you don't need to note this down because it's part of the links right here, the slides of which I will share with you at the end of the session. On this page, you will find a detailed, an in-depth discussion as to what UWL Flex is and all the necessary guidance for each one of the specific parts from investigate, apply, and consolidate. All of these will provide you additional information by just clicking on Learn More, and it should redirect you to the relevant page to show you more as how you can develop the content within your module following UWL Flex approach for that particular section. So in this one here, for example, it just shows you some specific links, all of which are relevant guides. Let's say you wanted to build a folder. You'll just click on that link right there, and it should take you to a page that will show you how you can create folders within Blackboard. And of course, following this step-by-step approach, it will help you build that content following the UWL Flex. So that's on the main homepage. On the About, you'll just see a list of the different schools that we have and your relevant school leads, school academic leads. We'll be adding a contact somewhere here to include the Expert Academy team members who will be supporting you in case you have any specific questions. We are yet to confirm who those will be, so just keep an eye on this page for some time by, I don't know, maybe hopefully end or mid next week. Maybe that should be up there. But of course, in the meantime, in case there are any questions, then please do just email Expert Academy. The guides here, these are the three parts, the three components of UWL Flex that we've already looked at. So if you go into that, you'll find the relevant information showing you how you can build the content for each one of those particular sections. The quality criteria that you need to follow or consider when you're developing your content is attached here. So just come and have a look at this, and you can follow this as you're developing your content. Then, of course, your full online teaching toolkit that shows you everything that you need to know as far as teaching online is concerned, in case you may be in that position. Like we said, we are expecting to come back to do this face-to-face for this academic year, but there may be any number of reasons that you could be doing it online like we've been doing for the last year. So if you just come and read this on an overview to see what type of browsers we recommend you to use, where you can find the browser, some specific guidance of the different systems we have, whether it's Mac OS or Windows, where to find information and guidance or who to contact, any guides you provide to your students as to how they can access Collaborate, and anything in between. All of that information is available here. You could just quickly skim through and look at that guidance for, just so that you can, you're fully aware of what's expected. Now, the one thing I skipped here is the exemplar. Like I said, you don't need to note this down because, again, the link is right here for you to access. The exemplar is a Blackboard module that has been created to show examples of how you can develop the content following the UWL Flex approach. And this is focused on the relevant schools that you're a part of, in this case, School of Human and Social Sciences. It's a self-enroll module that when you visit on this page and access this link, it will show you the relevant steps that you follow by to self-enroll on it. And once you're there, you'll find the guidance you need. So say you did that successfully, it would redirect you here. And like I said earlier, if you have any problems accessing the content or anything that I'm showing you today, then just Expert Academy contact or myself and we'll be able to support you. Once you're on the module, it will redirect you to this page showing you the examples of weeks of learning. There are two other links, standard module template, showing you how the content is created following the UWL Flex. I'll show you that in a moment, but within a live module. And then, of course, the Flex quality training. These are examples of that as well. For now, mainly I'll be covering the weeks of learning. So here, to find an example of your school, simply come and select that relevant folder. And it will show you hopefully, what your content should look like at the end of the day. In this example, we have it as week 5, crime and victimization. So in your case, within your module, you will have all the relevant folders week by week, created in a similar manner, showing the module name, the folder name, which is the subject matter discussed for that particular week, the week number, so they know where they are in the semester, and of course, a bit of a description of what it is that they'll be covering for that week. We do also recommend that in most cases, maybe you could also include an indication of what type of the learning outcomes will be covered for that particular week of learning. In the folder, it's just showing an example that in this case, they'll be discussing an introduction of maybe that crime and victimization, and these are the step-by-step activities that they'll be covering for that week. The investigate part clearly shows that in this case they have a recording that students should start to look at, and they've also described it as to what recording this is, what it will be covering. They've shown that it's maybe adapted from a chapter 8 of a specific book somewhere. So in case one needs to find more information about it, they could just find that relevant content to do so. They may also provide additional reading for them to, I don't know, find more information about that particular subject matter. Then for your reply, it may be that you're delivering this session online, so you'll just attach the relevant webinar, or just tell them or inform them that within their collaborate area, they'll find a link to that webinar that will be used to deliver that week's session. In some cases, like we said, you may also have some slides that are to be used for delivery for that particular module. In that case, then, sorry, for that particular week of learning, in that case, then you just attach those as well. And of course, under consolidate, you have that additional content as well, whether it's additional reading for them to extend or expand on the knowledge of what it is they've discussed, maybe a recording to tie up and maybe provide a bit of an overview of everything that has been covered for that particular week, or maybe additional learning for what may be discussed the following week. And these are just additional recordings as well. Now you can see in this example here that they have not attached something like a quiz or something like a discussion forum. It may be that, depending on the situation, that say you're in a more of a practical week, then probably the discussion may not be relevant, depending on your school, of course. In some cases with your schools, I'm assuming within School of Human Social Sciences, the practical activities would obviously be quite useful to have a good discussion about. So if you could attach that, a little bit of a quiz for them to talk about their understanding of the topic for that activity, for the lab activity, or maybe a discussion forum to do peer support or for you to support them, then that would make that much of a difference. The other thing that I wanted to show is the Blackboard baseline template to discuss what it is and what each part of that baseline template is used for. Now, obviously, I've been using this, some of you, for years, at least for the last year anyway. So you may not need this necessarily, but just in case, particularly for those who are HPLs or PhD students who may not be as familiar, then this will be quite useful for you. When you're in the module, the first thing you'll see is that it redirects you to the announcements area. And using the create announcement section, you are able to provide some generic or any specific information that you would like all the students within your module to be aware of. There's a question that's usually been asked that I'm a lecturer on a module, but I can't see the announcement section, or I can't see the create announcement within the announcement section. Recognize this content, yes. So it asked that they asked that I can't see the create announcement link to add a new announcement. Am I maybe not enrolled as a lecturer, or is there a problem with my account or something like that? The usual issue is that they have not turned on edit mode. So if you see here, if I turn mine off, I will see the section, but I can't see the links and all the descriptions have gone off. It's showing me something similar to what a student might see. Anything that's to be edited is automatically hidden. So if you see something similar, just ensure that edit mode is on, and then everything should be back. In the contacts area, this main navigation on the left, that's where the template is. So the second is the content area, or contacts area. We do recommend that you create such contacts to show who the lecturers are in the module. Of course, this information is also within the module study guide. But unfortunately, to be fair, not all students read the module study guide. So just putting it somewhere like this just makes it that much easier and more easily accessible. Using that, your students will be able to contact you, whether it's via email or a phone number or something else, in case they need some support from you. The learning material, apologies. The learning materials area is where all of the content that you'll be delivering on a week-by-week basis will be stored. An example of this is what you see here. And like I said earlier, we do recommend that you have information about maybe what learning outcomes are covered for that week, so students are aware. The first thing, say you go in your week 1, similar to what we discussed earlier, you could have a bit of an introduction to talk about what it is that's being discussed for that week. And then you have the 3 parts from the investigate, the webinar or scheduled session for teaching, the apply section, consolidate, and any additional materials that the student may need for that particular week. Oh, sorry, the assessments one. No, module information. In the module information, this is where you have the module specific content, from everything to do with what the module is, the module study guide, any assessments to be covered, the module structure, all of that will be shared in here. And this is to provide the student with the full overview of what the module is, what they can expect to learn, what's expected of them to do, and things like that. There is also a peer-to-peer support discussion board that has been attached for them just to talk to each other, to help each other for the module itself. In the assessment, this is the assessment specific area of the module. You will provide all the relevant assessments such as a quiz, an assignment, be it Blackboard or Turnitin, and everything in between. You will provide also the table showing clearly what type of assessments there are, when they're due, whether they have a word count, whether it's maybe a recording or a report or an essay, and everything that's related to that. All of this information will help the student know full well of what it is that's expected of them, how they can go about to do that, and of course, in case they need additional support, they would know where to contact you using the contacts area of the module, or of course, if they review the module study guide, where that information also resides. In the webinars area, the webinars collaborate. That's where you'll be creating all of the relevant webinar links for you to deliver the sessions online with the students in case they'll be delivered online. In case they'll be delivered on campus and you may be, say, in a room that is UWL Replay enabled, and maybe your session is tagged or marked from timetabling as a lecture, then we in Expert Academy, we will automatically schedule the recording for you. Any of you who may have been here for the last 2 or 3 years or so, you are familiar with this. When we schedule those sessions for you, all you have to do is just go into the class, start the computer and deliver your session, and that will automatically be recorded. Of course, if there are any complications during the process, before or after, just email Expert Academy and we should be able to support you. While you're here, these are all the sessions and any others that you'll be using to deliver. On the filter by, if you view by maybe previous sessions, you are able to open a sessions options and view reports. And this will show you how many students attended, the duration of it, and you can also view the attendance of all of those who attended. And this helps you know who may have missed the class, so you can provide them additional support if required. And it's also part of that requirement, particularly if you have Tier 4 students who are visa bound. On the top left in the menu, you can go into the recordings area, and here you'll find by default all recordings created in the last 30 days. If you can't find any recordings there, that's because of 2 reasons. One, either the recording was not created in the first place, or it was created but it's more than 30 days ago. If that's the case, then just filter, view recordings in range, and provide a previous date. So I'm going to say 1st of February, because the semester 2 module, then I would see all of the recordings that were delivered during that time. This is also important. If you created a recording within Collaborate and you want to again include that within the week of learning, so maybe students could link that to what they've studied for the week, then you would normally come to the recordings here, copy a link, and then maybe paste it as part of the content as an item within the learning materials for that week of learning. There is a caveat with that, however. If you do it for any of these recordings that have a mark that clearly says course members only, they will not be able to view the recording using the link, even though they're enrolled in the module. The reason for that is because they need to be authenticated. And that process is that they either come to view the recordings themselves, click on it, and then watch now. If they do it that way, then they can see it. If you want to make sure that they can see the recording immediately just using the link you've shared, you need to make the recording public. To do that, simply select the 3 dots, which are the recording options, open the recording settings, change the access to public. When you save this, these 2 recordings now can be viewed directly using the links. All other recordings that are course members only, the student would have to come, or even yourself as a lecturer, you'd have to come directly to the recording, click on it, and then view now. Just something to keep in mind. Then, of course, we have the UWL replay. Now, this is obviously very important, particularly now, because we're coming back to face-to-face teaching. Like I said, in case any one of your sessions will be delivered on campus, and you are in a room that's UWL replay enabled, and to identify that, there is a list on Teaching Hub I will share. If you're in such a room, your session is a lecture, not a seminar, then that should automatically be recorded following the information we receive from timetabling. In case there are any problems, like your session was not recorded, then it's probably because maybe there's a problem with the system and that should be IT's issue. We can contact them for support. Or it may be that we did not receive your information as a lecture from timetabling. So it's best to just contact them to confirm that all of your sessions are scheduled, just to have that in mind, just in case. And like we said earlier, if any one of your recording or sessions will be recorded on Panopto, similar to Collaborate, and you want to build this back into the week of learning as part of UWL Flex, you can do that. With recordings available there, you can simply copy the link, attach it to an area within the week of learning, and the student will be able to view that directly. Like I said again, in case there are any specific requirements or support or guidance with how to do this that you may require, just contact us. Or if you look at the UWL Flex example, you will see how to do that. The reading lists is where you'll find all the recommended and or essential readings for the module. Again, part of the extend, particularly with the consolidate part, is if you're not going to attach something like a LinkedIn Learning course, but you may need to attach, say, a specific book or a book chapter, then you can do that from here by simply clicking on the dots, copying the share item. That will give you a link, and you can just attach that as part of the module and specify to the student that for this specific week, look at this book, maybe read a specific chapter as part of the extend activity following the consolidate model, consolidate component of the UWL Flex model. And then we have the groups. If you have groups for your module, they'll be available there. My marks, if you also view, you will see a similar one because you added as a lecturer. These are not relevant for you. However, for your student, they will see all the different submissions, so all the different assessments and assignments for the module, the submissions they've made, marks you've awarded them, and feedback you've given. So this is where they'll come to see how well they've performed following the submissions that they've done. For any staff generic help, if you click on this link, it will take you directly to the UWL, to the Teaching Hub, where you can find guides for the different learning technologies we have. For students, if they click on Blackboard Help, they'll be redirected to the university pages, where they'll find relevant information for that and other learning technologies that they would use. So that's everything to do with the baseline template on Blackboard. The other one down here, particularly for those who may not be fully aware of this, is that the content collection, this is where all of the files you've attached for the module, like folders you've created or uploaded, some PDFs, PowerPoints, and everything, will be attached just under this module code right there. That's like your digital storage for the module. The course tools, these are all the relevant course tools you can use for that module, and also specifically accessing Turnitin assignments for marking and feedback. And of course, if you want to create tests, surveys, and polls, there's that guidance right there as well. Evaluation is for when you want to run specific reports to do something to see how well students are engaging with the content or the module, and maybe any of those who aren't, so you can provide them relevant support, and anything else that may be tracked within Blackboard. The Grade Center is where you can come to access all the submissions or attempts of submissions the students has made for whether it's an assessment or an assignment. And you can also do marking and assign feedback as well. In users and groups, you'll find the list of groups and the users attached to them, and of course the list of all users within the module. The customization, in case you want to change anything to do with the module, particularly making it available, for example, and that can be done under properties, or alternatively, the quickest way is just to click on this padlock right here. If it's currently red like that, students cannot access. To them, it will show private. But for you, you can access because you're a lecturer. To make it available, just click on the padlock and that's it. They will now be able to access it. And then finally, the question asked about copying content from a previous module to another, you do it under here in packages utilities via the the course copy. And you can also do the same thing within a community using the organization copy. Like I said, I'll be providing specific guidance for that, and that's under Blackboard support pages. You don't have to copy this link because, again, it's linked right here, guidance for staff. On this, when you come to Blackboard, down here, you will see all the different things that you can do, plus additional guidance that we'll be adding in near future. The one to copy content is this one, copy files between modules. You don't need to copy this now, like I said. When the email I will send to you, maybe sometime in the afternoon, I will list all of this information in there for your reference. On this, you can either follow the guide if you want a quick skim through, or if you want a full step-by-step, then you can just view the recording down here. There will also be additional guidance on how to do other things, like maybe copying tests, because you have to export the test and import it somewhere else, and anything in between. So just come and review this content after I provide you the guides later. And of course, if any additional support is required, then just please let us know. Any questions with what I've covered so far? That's okay, I'll provide the recording as well. We're about to finish anyway. Any questions?
Thank you, Mauricio. I think that was a really good kind of overview of it. Hopefully new staff, if they're not here, they'll get a good sense of everything. I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but maybe if there are questions, they can probably email you if there are. Oh, there's some hands going up, but maybe cover them. I was going to say potentially cover them tomorrow as well, might be helpful, but I just wanted to say thank you, Mauricio, and thanks for organizing this at such short notice.
You're most welcome. But before any of you leave, I've just put a quick form in there. It's just based on very quick questions, only 5 of them. Simply just come and select what's relevant to you here and just provide general feedback as far as today's session is concerned, how you found that and whether it was useful. And just remember, all of this is completely anonymous, so be as critical as possible. All right, you're most welcome. In case there are no additional questions, again, like I said, the form is attached. It should only take you a quick minute or so. I'll just proceed to go here and make this one active. It's just another poll to select how you found today's session. So I'm going to deactivate this one and make that one active. If you can't do it right now because you have to leave, that's okay, because I will also attach it in the email I will send at the end of the day.
It's 13 hours.
I'll be reading the responses soon. The most important of these feedback forms, by the way, this one here, not as important, this is mainly for me, but the one that I've attached in the link, particularly the CPD one that I've named, that's the most important because it's also part of our ongoing commitment to ensure that we provide you all the relevant guidance and support. Again, I will provide that in the email that I will send later today. And any of the questions asked today, I will confirm those in there. Additional questions that you may have, you could just respond. I will either cover those tomorrow or I'll respond them within the email. All right, in case there are no additional questions, I'll just proceed to stop the recording.